Hello everyone, many thanks for joining us today to take a look at Microsoft Dynamics 365 Unified Interface. I'm Warren Butler, the Marketing Director at Preact, and I'm delighted to be joined by my colleague Simon Shaw, who will lead the presentation today. After the initial introductions, the main focus is going to be a demonstration of the unified interface. And in this, Simon will be covering its navigation and highlighting a selection of features that differ from the regular web interface that most desktop users currently experience. Microsoft's goal is to make the unified interface the primary and only client interface for all Dynamics 365 customer engagement apps. So we'll also share details of its roadmap and explain why planning for this new experience should be on the to-do list of every Dynamics administrator and project leader. By way of a brief introduction to Preact, we are a CRM partner helping small and mid-sized businesses as well as enterprise teams implement and support Dynamics 365 across its customer engagement applications. Trading since 1993, today we support more than 7,500 users across numerous industry sectors. We're one of just 60 partners worldwide included in the prestigious Dynamics Inner Circle, which puts Preact in the top 1% bracket of Microsoft's partners. It's fair to say that CRM projects are always evolving and can never really be considered done. So in a great many instances, we work with our clients through a managed service. On an ongoing basis, this helps them make continual improvements to their Dynamics system and develop their in-house expertise. If you're already using Dynamics 365 and are looking to do more with the product, please do get in touch and we'll be delighted to discuss your plans and offer advice. Before kicking off the demonstration, we'll get started by just touching on why Microsoft has introduced this new interface. By far the most significant factor behind this has been the need to address inconsistent experiences that users have encountered when using Dynamics 365 across different devices and screens. Think about using Dynamics on a desktop browser, then on a mobile app, accessing records within Outlook, and many in the community have long commented on the divergence between each of these experiences. One reason for this is that the classic web interface, which existing users are familiar with, contains various constructs which couldn't translate well across other clients. And another driver of change is Dynamics' trend to becoming ever more app-centric. With more connected and diverse app modules being implemented to handle different work streams, it's increasingly important for apps to be designed once, quickly deployed and shared across clients without needing to spend excessive time developing and maintaining multiple forms for each device or screen. Microsoft's answer has been to introduce the unified interface. In short, this uses a responsive web design to make sure that Dynamics 365 is portable so that records and forms reflow whether being accessed on a large screen or a small mobile device. This reflects the same responsive principles seen in websites, which are rendered for optimal viewing and interaction across any screen size, orientation, or device. To achieve this consistency across clients, a fundamental part of the unified interface structure is the Power Apps control framework that now comes into play. And essentially, this is a layer that sits on top of Dynamics Forms that enables custom controls to be built. As Simon will shortly feature, these can include things like dials, switches, and sliders, which are designed to provide greater visualization across form factors for entering data. Within the unified interface, each control, such as a text box, a calendar, or these switches, can be built using the Power Apps control framework. And it's in this that developers and partners are provided with a new framework to design, build, and deploy custom functionality in Dynamics 365. Other aspects of the unified interface include embedded dashboards across all devices, including mobile. There's the ability to dock or pin process flows, a new timeline that's supported by visual filters, and also a reference or related panel that enables users to access contextual information by switching between grids without clicking away from records or launching pop-ups. But rather than talking about it, let me hand over to Simon so that we can take a look. So just bear with me and we'll throw that over. Thanks, Simon. It is all yours.
Thank you for the introduction, Warren. So firstly, hopefully everyone can see my screen. So I'm starting off with the app for Microsoft Outlook. And this is the app that can be installed. It's a light client. So once you've installed this, you'll see that you've got the little button here. So I'm sure most of you are already familiar with if you're already using this. Now, so once I load this up, hopefully you can see that we've got this nice little interface here. So this allows you to track your emails, but also it is essentially a dial in, so you can do more than just track an email. So if I set regarding here, you'll see that I can access this information. I can call out here. I can add an activity, so I could create a task all from here, and I can enter these bits of information here. Without having to move anywhere in the screen, I don't have to load up another tab. I can create all my tasks using this, and then just leave those as they are. So this interface is the same as you'll see on the new user unified interface and also on the mobile client. So continuing on from this, now I'm going to open up my Dynamics. So I've already got this open here. So this is the old interface. So let's just go on my About. You see I'm running this on version 17.10 9.02. So the way we navigate to the new interface, so we do that via here. So you've got all your apps. So you notice I've got my customer service hub, I've got field service resource hub, and I've got the sales hub deployed. So if I go into the customer service hub, we'll come to the login screen here. So this is a dashboard view, much like most people will have logged in as their dashboard view for when they sign into the main version of Dynamics. So first things first, you can see how this is slightly different. So you'll notice the top is slightly cleaner. There are slightly less buttons on there. And then you'll notice that the menu bar is now on the left. So this is reduced from the sitemap that many of you might have, which is rather customized and has lots of custom entities and various different bits and bobs, whereas this is a much more trimmed down version. So obviously on the customer service hub you have the things most pertinent to that. So down the bottom in the service area I have things like my cases, queues and knowledge base articles. So from within here you'll see that I can look at recent things I've viewed under these little drop downs here. And we also have the recently used. And we can pin these if there's any that we need to quickly navigate back to. And then these are the main areas where we would be working. So firstly, if we go into the accounts, you'll see this is the main view for accounts, much like the views from before. So there isn't a great deal of difference, apart from you may see that there's this button up here, which is Open Dashboards. Now, if I click on the Open Dashboards, you see I've got this set. So this is a view showing all the accounts in a slightly different way, which makes it slightly easier for you to digest. And this is much more interactive. So we've got things like visual filters, which we can now add. We've then got tile views, which we can have, and you can split between that and the stream views. And also we have filtering as well. So a better example of how also this can work is if I go to cases. So exactly the same, this is a view, and I go to the dashboards. This is where things like the visual filters will become very useful. So using the visual filters, we can drill down on information. So these are all interactive. So if I want to see which cases are high priority, as that's most pertinent, you'll see it's drilled these down. So these are the 3 accounts. These are the cases under those accounts. And these are where the resolved cases will lie. So all this is an interactive filter. Clear that, and then exactly the same again. We can filter this by account so I can see which cases. But the main aspect of this is it's very interactive and it allows for very quick navigation and very quick slicing and dicing of data to help with your workload. Now, following on from this, if I quickly proceed over to the case form, you'll see this is where things really start to get interesting. So if I select one of these cases, you'll see that there's a few different areas that have changed here, and this does look quite different. So, the main thing across the top, you've still got your process flow bar. So this has changed and designed slightly, so you now have a target of where you are at which stage it's currently at. You can see it has how long the process has been active for, and they've just changed sort of the visual effects of this. So this still works in the same way. You still enter in the information that has been set as part of the business process flows. These are still have the ability to follow logic, so you can still use branching logic with these. All that's been changed is the way it looks. You do now have the ability to pin this out. So if I click the button here, I can pop this out, and this will then stay here, which means I can navigate through the different forms, through the different tabs here, and this will stay here. An additional feature of this also is if you want to look at all cases, so you open the record set with this button here, you'll see that I'll have all these different cases here, but if I select one, you'll see it will automatically still keep this pinned out and see which stage of the process this is in. We can also then use this to move stages, and we can close it from here without having to go anywhere else. Now, the next part I want to cover is tabs. So most of you will know from the current experience of tabs, if you have forms that have a large amount of tabs on, these can become a bit of a beast to negotiate and to navigate through. So the way they have come across and fixed this now is, if you look here, we have things like details, we have case relationships, and we have our SLAs. These have now moved here, which is much cleaner navigation. So rather than lots of scrolling vertically, we can now just navigate quickly via these tabs. You'll notice there is now also a related tab. So the related tab, we can pick one of these which we're going to be accessing a lot. So if I chose activities, you'll see it has added activities onto here. And we can now navigate quickly backwards and forwards. And then if I wanted to change this to say work orders or knowledge base articles, you'll see that I can attach these and these will stay pinned to the tab up here. So you'll notice that the entire time I've done that, these have stayed pinned. So if I'm going to close these down to get back some of my screen space, and we'll focus on this other part of this form. So we now have a timeline. This has replaced, you might remember from the activity pane, where you have activities, notes, things like that across. You have the 4 areas across the top, and then you have to go into each one individually to view the parts set against that. So now you have the idea of a timeline. So a timeline contains all of those bits of information. So you'll see I can have activity, so I still have all the different activity types, but we can also post and add notes, and that will all be in this one main view. We can refresh this, and we can also filter this. So the filtering is very useful. So now if you need, that it's a specific phone call, or it's a specific appointment, or an email type that you're looking for, and you can then filter on date as well. So you'll notice, aside from all the details on the timeline, you've also got things like the audit trail, so exactly when each post was made, exactly when each thing came across. We now have the idea with this arrow, so we can change the sort order, and then we can sort by things like that. We can sort note, modified on activities, etc. So the next area, as I'm sure you can see from my screen, we have is the related tab. So the idea of related is a slightly more interactive subgrid. So in this case, I can see recent cases and entitlements. This will be against the account. And then I can also navigate to my knowledge base articles, and I can search within here rather than navigating anywhere else on my screen. And I've also got similar cases also if the rules are configured, which allows me to see similar cases and help with the resolution. Now, I'm sure you can tell from my screen, some of you might not recognise this. This is part of what I want to come on to next, which is the Custom Control Framework, CCF. So essentially this is a new way of overlaying controls over current attributes on a form. So this is exceptionally useful for if you're on a mobile device or a tablet, and it just makes the user experience much better as it's slightly more interactive, and it just makes the whole thing slightly smoother. So the simple way of showing this is one of the examples I've got. This is the priority buttons. So this is essentially just an option set with an overlay of these. So I can just click on these. Obviously on a computer it's still nice and clean rather than using the drop down menu. However, as you can imagine on a phone or tablet, that's much more pertinent. Now, these controls might make a little bit more sense if I actually show this on a phone screen, and I'll show you a little bit what this looks like. So what I'm going to do now is just I'll quickly share my phone screen. So I can just move this across. There we are, hopefully you can all see that. So, I'll load up my Dynamics app. And you'll notice that I can see the exact same dashboards as I can on the web client, which is my default of customer service. So I still have the availability to change all the different views here. So first things first, we'll go back to looking at the control framework stuff. So if I firstly will go on to an account. So let's have a look for the Preact account. We'll find that here. So notice the form, still very similar to before. So here I've added a field, so I have number of users. So this is done using a slider. So what I've done is set values of between 0 and 100 with an increment of 1. These can be fully sort of adjusted to your needs. And obviously the experience on the phone is much smoother using this. It's much easier for me to quickly capture information. Obviously you'll have your own parameters. I want you to do that, but that is a good example of one of those controls. So there are quite a few areas of the phone app which I think is going to be especially useful as things they've added for the unified interface. So one of these is the way of navigating. So hopefully you can see that on my screen. You'll see that it shows quite clearly whereabouts I am. It allows me to see where my phone screen is and what I'm viewing. I can navigate using this. So if I would like to look at one of the different areas, I could look at the details tab. So say I want to look at their shipping, and then tap shipping, and you'll see it will have navigated to that area. So hopefully now that's nice and clear. So you'll see we can still see the same areas, so we've still got the ability to use the related embedded stuff. We can change tabs and see the different things here. So these are the related entities, so we could just look at the timeline. You'll see again that we've got auto posts when things are created, we have the phone calls, tasks, etc. And all of these you'll see are in a nice timeline view showing the complete customer journey. So another quite cool feature you can use using the CCF, if I go into contact here, obviously we typically will put phone numbers in, and to ensure that these are always entered correctly, we can use one of the CCF controls, which allows us to set a standard format. So for example, if I try and type some letters in here, I'm trying to type these on my screen, you can see, but it won't let me. And then I'm forced to use the format. So this is something that we've set. So if I want to enter a phone number, I have to do it in the format suggested, and it won't let me type any more numbers than that. and it won't let me not conform to that. So that's quite a cool control feature, which is very useful if you've got people on the go who are entering numbers very quickly whilst over the phone. They can make sure that they've entered the correct amount of information. You don't have any sort of numbers where they've only got 5 or 6 numbers. If they haven't put in the area code, things like that, you can force it so people have to enter it in the desired format. So hopefully that's a little bit clear, even if it's just a bit of a whistle-stop tour. So now I've got another good one to show you. So using all these, you see I can see all the related, as I've mentioned before. So related, we've got service down here. So I can navigate to my cases. So this is cases associated against this contact I have here. So notice how nice and easy that was for me to negotiate and find. So here's the FORB of one of my cases. So we've got the priority I've mentioned using the custom control framework controls up the top here. Now you'll see we'll go across to the details tab. You'll see we have a nice little flip switch for yes and no. That's another one of the new custom controls, which again makes using it on the device much cleaner. So quite a common one we find is people using the mobile app, especially on a tablet. You've gone to a customer site, you need to secure a signature, whether that's someone signing off some work, etc. And so another one of the custom fields is I've added a sign-off field here. So essentially all this is a pen input via the phone. So I'm just going to sign this here. I can tick I've exceeded the maximum number of characters. Annoyingly, I haven't set the maximum characters correctly, but you get the idea. I can enter that in there, and then that will save automatically against the count. So you can secure customer's signature on site and automatically have this uploaded instantly onto the CRM and therefore tracked against that account. Hopefully by this point I haven't bored you too much. So essentially I'm not going to go on too much about talking about how amazing the mobile app is. There's a lot of functionality for those of you who aren't currently using the mobile app, and with version 9 this is only added to those features. So one thing I wanted to show you on the mobile before I get rid of my screen is if we go back to the home screen, you'll notice I've got these dashboards, and hopefully many of you are aware, but you can have Power BI dashboards embedded within your Dynamics. So for those of you familiar with Power BI, it's a very powerful reporting tool, and I know a lot of you will have already configured some Power BI reports and embedded those within your Dynamics. But with the new unified interface, because they've made this so it's the same across all devices, this now means that when you've got your reports embedded, I will be able to view them on a mobile device. So if I select my customer service one, you'll see that this is a report straight from Power BI. So we've got some nice visuals as we would expect. And this is a dashboard that I've just pre-configured, and then I'm allowed to access this. So this is especially useful for those of us who want to just check reports and see where things are at whilst we're on the go, rather than have to sign into the web app client to view Power BI. You can now also view this on your mobile client. Hopefully now that's shown some of the functionality of what you can do with the custom control framework stuff, and how you can use that in alignment with the mobile application in order to become more efficient. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to get rid of my casting now and get rid of my mobile device, and we'll go back to where we were on the case example. So you'll notice also the form design has changed slightly. So the grids are much cleaner, there's a lot more white space. You'll notice that because of the tabs, there's a lot less scrolling, it's much clearer. You'll see we've got pop out down here. So what I'll do, let me just move that across. Fortunately, this was one of the joys of using multiple screens. So here we are. And what I've done is I've pop out this. The idea of this is I could be using the unified interface on this and keep this one open, but obviously now I can also navigate using the other tab as well. It's just something that's quite convenient if you want to pop this out. This way you can open multiple windows if you've got a specific case you're working on, something like that. You can just pop it out and save that, so you can flick through those windows nice and quickly. So we've gone back to the active case view. So what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to talk a little bit more about those dashboards. So these obviously are pre-configured using the main client. You can't configure things using the unified interfaces. These are something you will predefine using the main client, and then you can just select which forms are going to be able to be viewed on the web and mobile clients. So things like the controls we talked about, you'll notice that you can control if the controls are on the mobile and the web client. So typically for a lot of those examples, I would suggest that people configure it only for the mobile client, and then you can keep it as free text, things like that on the machine. It just makes the user experience slightly cleaner. So back to the reports. So something I showed you earlier when we were on the accounts entity about the interactive tiles. So it's the same again. We can do drill down using these, nice and interactive. You notice that the way this is displayed is slightly different to that of the main dynamics. So we can select a chart type, select a case, and there you go. It'll build that. I don't have to leave the screen. I can do that on there. I can pop this out. So if I expand this chart, there we go, full page, nice and clean. So once again, as I said, there's the different dashboards. If we go to my customer service analytics, this is my Power BI report. You'll notice that that's all within here. So one of the good benefits of using a report like this is, whereas on Dynamics you're limited to having only 6 different reports per screen, with Power BI it can be a little bit more flexible, as well as having better visuals. So these are also interactive. I can drill down on those, just like I've drilled down on this report. And again, I can then use the options to open Power BI report and open this directly within Power BI. So I'm not going to talk any more about Power BI, but for those of you who haven't, I suggest you consider taking a look at it and seeing what powers it could offer you. So I'm sure some of you are wondering, okay, can you still do things like advanced find, etc. from within this? And the simple answer is yes, you can. The way it works is essentially it pops out a window which is linking back to the old main form, and that is just how it's done. So you can still create all of these and you can save this view, etc. But essentially all this is doing is going back to the old client, and then when you close this and you've created your view, it will appear in the usual space. Hopefully that covers as much as I can within the quite short time period. I appreciate a lot of you will have further questions, so if you feel free to drop me an email. My contact details are on the presentation. Or if you need any further assistance with anything Dynamics CRM related, we'd be more than happy to help. Just give us a call or drop me an email. I'm just going to hand back to Warren now for sort of the closing steps. But as I mentioned, if there's any sort of questions on today's demo, or you'd like any further information about Dynamics or indeed the services we offer here at Preact, then please do get in touch with me.
That's great. Many thanks for that, Simon. When we talk about the unified interface as being new, it was actually first introduced in 2017. And for anyone who's implemented or upgraded to version 9.0, the unified interface is already there. And while it's in action on mobile apps and in the Outlook app, for the majority of desktop users, it's remained hidden behind the curtain. In 9.0 and also 9.1 that's currently rolling out, unified interface coexists with the classic web interface for existing customers. And upon upgrading to 9.0, many administrators opted for a refreshed version of the regular interface rather than moving over to the new experience. And that's because there were several important functionality gaps which have existed between the old and new interfaces, with commands such as advanced find, merging records, and bulk edits not available in the initial unified interface rollout, which has proved an obvious barrier to widespread adoption. These gaps are closing as Microsoft release updates to fix issues and introduce new capabilities. To address some of these gaps, such as the ones I've mentioned, we're increasingly hearing Microsoft refer to hybrid experiences. And as Simon featured in the demonstration, the advanced find command has recently been added to the unified interface. And running this is just one example of a hybrid experience. And you saw that clicking this opens up the old classic UI display to define search terms. However, upon clicking any item in the search results, it will open records in the unified interface. So as a result, that legacy UI is very much contained and it won't leak to other functions, such as when records are viewed, as in this example. That means hybrid is combining the old experience on a very much contained basis with the new. I mentioned earlier that Microsoft's goal is to make the unified interface the primary interface for all Dynamics 365 experiences. And to reflect this, it's now default when creating a new app module, and there isn't an option to use the legacy UI in these instances. Unified interface is very much the future for the product, and it's definitely something that all CRM managers and administrators should be actively planning for. That's because while today the classic web UI and the new experience are coexisting, Microsoft has signaled that at some point it will switch off this side-by-side arrangement and migrate everybody across to the unified interface. That prompts the obvious question of when is that going to happen? But right now, we can't answer that. Certainly, with the 9.1 release, there isn't any change, and the regular web interface remains available. Microsoft has stressed that it will provide ample notice to remaining customers before it deprecates the classic web interface, which suggests to me at least that it won't happen before the release of version 10, which is scheduled for April 2019. Telemetry is increasingly being used by Microsoft to better understand how users are interacting with the product, and this will certainly be crucial in them determining when the legacy interface should be deprecated based on adoption of the new UI. But rather than any time frame that Microsoft announced driving this migration, we do hope that this brief introduction has demonstrated how the new interface does offer a better overall experience. This will be improved with the upcoming releases, and while for the last 12 months we've tended to talk about functionality gaps in the unified interface, as we head into 2019, we expect to see this reverse, and it will be the legacy interface that starts to trail as Microsoft adds more functions which are exclusive to the new UI. Some of these are arriving in version 9.1, As well as improvements to the navigation, this will include new support to add custom controls into process flows. These include the type of sliders and switches that Simon featured, and these can be applied to flows as well as forms. It will also include the option to include widgets that provide contextual insights from LinkedIn Sales Navigator within guided processes. Other enhancements include native functionality for dependent option sets and editable grids when using Dynamics on a phone. And finally, it will be possible to surface Microsoft Teams from within a Dynamics record and vice versa. Again, with these updates exclusively coming into the unified interface, it means the reasons for making the switch will grow ever more compelling. This is a significant change, and migration to a new interface should certainly be carefully planned. On this slide, we have shared some suggestions to help you prepare. Firstly, to think about the different use cases in your own business. Each workstream can have its own specific Dynamics 365 app and user experiences. So consider which aspects of the unified interface, including custom controls, can be best utilized for these individual requirements. If you haven't already, do take a look at the new experience within your non-production environment. We also recommend speaking to Preact or engaging with your current Dynamics partner to learn more about the unified interface. This will help you understand any important functionality gaps, as well as assess the potential impacts of implementing the new experience within your environments and how best to utilize its new capabilities. You can supplement this information with further resources that Microsoft has published on its Dynamics blog. And any plan should certainly focus on user adoption to handle this change and make sure that all Dynamics users understand how to navigate the new experience. That's packed in a lot of information in a fairly short space of time. Whether you're already on the road to going live with the unified interface or you're in the early planning stages, we do hope you found this to be a useful introduction. If you want to take a closer look and understand how the UI can be configured and used within the context of your processes, please do get in touch and we'll be very happy to help. We'll be sharing more information on this topic and what else is new in the 9.1 release on our blog. So if you don't already, please do follow us on LinkedIn or join our mailing list to receive our updates. We're going to pause for a moment before we respond to your questions. But if you are leaving us at this point, many thanks for joining us today. We're very appreciative of the time that you've given, and we hope to see you on a future presentation or speak to you soon. Thanks very much.